Hello to everyone. Today we have a video about autolysis and autophagy, which are frequently confused. For people who are just discovering dry fasting, it is often weight loss, detox, ketosis, autophagy, but we forget one element that is very interesting, which comes into play in water fasting and dry fasting therapies, especially in dry fasting because autolysis is much more effective. Therefore, there is often a confusion between autophagy and autolysis. People think it is the same thing, but it is somewhat related, though not quite the same. There you have it. So understanding this difference really allows us to understand why dry fasting is capable of producing changes, more significant for energy, inflammation, and pain. And furthermore, regarding certain pathological tissues, dry fasting will go deep into post-fast recovery. You possess energy that is truly optimal because your body is thoroughly cleansed in its deepest depths. Because dry fasting will wring out, will do a much more effective, much more significant wash. Through these two mechanisms, we truly have a deep cleaning process that occurs. There you go. So the body is a survival machine with exceptional adaptive capabilities. Therefore, we underestimate for most who don't understand the mechanisms involved. And then when we eat constantly, the body functions in a mode of abundance. So we receive proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and water. The priority is construction, storing, building, and reproducing. When all food disappears, we enter into a fast or dry fast, water fasting or dry fasting. And then the body receives a different signal. The external resources are unavailable. So there is a metabolic physiological shift that begins to come into play. We put ourselves into a survival, let's say, intelligent one. Each cell asks itself a question. Quite simple. What can I recycle? What can I clean? What can I autophagy? We are going to see that. So the central part, it is first autophagy that comes into play, eating oneself. That happens at the cell level. It is a Nobel Prize in medicine of Yoshinori Osumi. So it is in 2016. And then autophagy, it is, as I say, it happens inside the cell. The cell examines content, identifying defective proteins, senescent cells, aging mitochondria, intracellular waste, worn out components. Then it dismantles them. Then it recovers useful materials. It eliminates what is no longer useful. A comparison is quite simple to make. So if we take a factory, you have machines that get tired, that wear out. Some tools become obsolete, some cables no longer work and are defective. Autophagy is a maintenance service for our body. It repairs, recycles, optimizes. Every human should favor autophagy. If you do not do that, how do you eliminate the diseased proteins in your body that are worn out? You must have periods of autophagy, just like our ancestors did. A cluttered cell functions poorly. A clean cell produces more energy, communicates better, resists stress, but slower. Dry fasting increases significantly the recycling capacity because you have autophagy that is much faster than water fasting. And then juice diets, for example, or caloric restrictions. There you have it. So the mitochondria, they are the beneficiaries. So these are energy plants that produce ATP. Then with age, these mitochondria become less effective. They produce a greater amount of free radicals. They become, with age, a bit dysfunctional. And then during dry fasting, we call it mitophagy. So it is the recycling of these worn out mitochondria. And then the most efficient ones survive. And then the energy park, when you are in post-fasting, when you recover, becomes much more efficient. So that is one of the reasons why many report after dry fasting more mental clarity, energy, less fatigue. Autolysis, so what is it? It is the internal surgeon. So it is the internal scalpel that will go to work. It is different from autophagy. It doesn't just happen in a cell, it consumes the whole body. It means self-digesting. Not anarchic destruction, but intelligent selection. The body will simply look for useless tissues, degenerated tissues, poorly functional tissues, less priority tissues, and it will attack them. If you have a lump here on the neck, if you have a fat ball, if you have, I do not know, a cyst, a mastosis, autolysis will go to work on these growths. If you have a scar or a ball, a lump, something that is abnormal, that is fixed in your body, it can also be a nodule or something like that. Autolysis will go work on that intensively to go reduce and put back to the norm of life, the principles of homeostasis, and put that back to the norm of an individual. We have a cleaning that is done of these excrescences that are abnormal. It can also be pimples. Not getting into hormones, but if someone has acne after 7 days of dry fasting, I assure you not much remains. We have seen it. We have seen cases that have shown that. It was quite spectacular to see, by the way. During dry fasting, resources become precious. The body acts like an intelligent manager. It truly performs a recycling action. It conserves and it recycles. Also, the body protects the brain, heart, and kidneys. Vital organs are never touched while fasting. This is often misunderstood. In the fasting process, adhesions can also be targeted and broken down. You have inflammatory tissues that can be targeted by this process. There are also edemas, which I haven't mentioned yet. Also, certain structures that are useless are authorized by this intelligent mechanism that our body has always provided. It is the scalpel. It is internal surgery. Why does dry fasting speed this up? Water fasting already activates autophagy, but dry fasting adds a second level of constraints. Therefore, the body must find more energy, more water, and more materials. To survive, it becomes extremely selective. Then the mobilization of fats is more important. So you have more toxins that are released. Ketosis is accelerated, recycling intensifies. So the Russian school speaks, if we take Nikolaev, the ancients often speak of an increase in autolytic power. The idea being really that the body searches more for useless tissues before recovering. It is always energy that is created post-dry fast. During dry fasting, metabolic water is produced. You have materials that are broken down during the fasting process, and then post-fasting it continues if your diet is correct. So, it is always a law of priority. You have sick tissues that are attacked. Autolysis does not touch all tissues in the same way. The heart, brain, nervous system, and muscles are preserved. There is no muscle loss during fasting. We will make a video on this. But it can gradually reduce excess fat, edemas, inflammation, fibrous tissues, and certain adhesions. That is where autolysis comes in. That is why some people report decreases in pain, spectacular improvements, sometimes in fibromyalgia, arthrosis. There is a reduction in edemas, swelling, and inflammation. And when you come out of the dry fast, you can really move again. You feel your body completely light. So when fats are mobilized, certain stored molecules can also be released. So the body must be in order. It will filter, it will transform, and it will eliminate. The liver, kidneys, lymph, and intestines work together. These are the emunctories. We detoxify and clean. This allows us to eliminate encrusted waste that autolysis will go clean and then expel from the body. Fasting doesn't create emunctories. It offers them an opportunity to work differently. The brain also benefits from the process. The brain loves ketone bodies. After a few days of fasting, your glucose levels decrease. There is almost none left, very little. And then the ketones will rise. Therefore, many people perceive and feel inside the body this calm, this concentration. You have better memory and presence. That is there when we fasted, that you do not have if you eat 4 meals a day. BDNF is important. It works on brain plasticity, learning, and adaptation. When you fast, you boost this brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is very beneficial. Physical autolysis, so there is the physical aspect, but there is also the emotional one. So during the cures, we also recycle tissues of all kinds. There is also a completely energetic, even emotional component that happens when you release these. It is these masses, these growths, you have an energetic notion because it has lasted for years. You have waste that is present. The fact of letting that go, you also create a psycho-emotional lightening when it will leave. Autophagy plus autolysis, you have the great reward, the great cleaning. You have cellular recycling, then the use, the global recycling of the organism. Autophagy works inside cells. Autolysis works at the tissue level. That is the difference. Autophagy is a maintenance team. Autolysis is a renovation site. Workers with hammers work on you. Drills work on you. These two mechanisms in dry fasting are accelerated and work together. And then, when it works together, the cells become more efficient. The mitochondria become more performant. The metabolism becomes cleaner. The energy really boosts. And then therapeutic dry fasting is not just an absence of food and water. It is a signal sent to the body, an extremely strong and powerful biological signal that says, I repair, I recycle, I optimize, I save. And then autophagy cleans the cells. Autolysis reorganizes the tissues so that it is harmonious together. And then together it participates in what many fasters describe as a physical rebirth. A regained mental clarity, a new energy, a deep sensation of regeneration. And it is probably one of the reasons why fasting has fascinated humanity for thousands of years. All religions speak of it. That was all for today. See you soon. Bye-bye.